Captain Jack Miller couldn't sleep. For the third night in a row, he found himself walking the quiet halls of the Earth exploration vessel Pioneer. The ship hummed softly around him as it drifted through the empty space of the Vega system. This was supposed to be a routine survey mission. Chart the planets, check for resources, and move on. Nothing special. Jack rubbed his tired eyes and made his way to the bridge. Maybe the stars would calm his mind tonight. Captain on deck called out Lisa Reed, the night shift communications officer. She started to stand, but Jack waved her back down. At ease, Reed, just restless again. He walked to the main viewport and stared out at the darkness dotted with distant lights. Anything interesting? Lisa shook her head. Just the usual background noise, sir. Space dust and... She stopped suddenly, her hand flying to her earpiece. Wait, I'm picking up something. Jack turned, suddenly alert. What is it? A signal. Very weak. Her fingers flew across her console. It's not one of ours. Not any pattern I recognize. Put it through speakers. A soft, crackling sound filled the bridge. At first, it seemed like random noise, but then a pattern emerged. 3 short bursts, followed by a longer tone, repeating over and over. Can we clean it up? Jack asked, moving closer. Lisa worked the controls. I'm trying to run it through the universal translator, but there's not enough data for a proper language match. The static cleared slightly, and a voice, at least it sounded like a voice, came through. The words were strange, alien, but something about the tone was unmistakable. Fear, urgency, desperation. Sir, Lisa said quietly. The translator picked up one phrase that keeps repeating. She looked up at Jack, her face pale. It says, help us. Jack stood perfectly still. Where's it coming from? Tom Wells, the science officer, had silently entered the bridge during the commotion. He moved to his station and began calculations. Based on signal strength and decay, it's coming from the Orpheus Nebula. That can't be right, Jack said. Nothing lives in the Orpheus Nebula. The radiation levels are too high. Nevertheless, that's the point of origin, Tom insisted, showing Jack the data on his screen. And what's more interesting, there appears to be a planet at the heart of the nebula, one that our star charts don't show. Jack's mind raced. Protocol was clear. Unusual findings were to be reported to Earth Command for further instructions, but that would take weeks, and something about that voice. Plot a course for the Orpheus Nebula, he ordered. Lisa looked up in surprise. Sir, regulations state. I know what regulations state, Reed, but someone out there needs help, and we're the only ones who can hear them. Jack straightened his uniform. Wake the rest of the crew. I want us at full operational capacity in 30 minutes. 3 days later, the Pioneer approached the outer edge of the Orpheus Nebula. The view was breathtaking. Swirls of purple and blue gas clouds stretching out in all directions. But the beauty hid danger. Radiation levels are increasing, Tom reported from his station. Our shields can handle it for now, but I wouldn't recommend staying long. The signal is stronger here, Lisa added. I'm getting more data for the translator to work with. It's definitely a distress call. Jack nodded. Keep going. Find us a safe path to that planet. The ship pushed deeper into the nebula, the gases outside growing thicker, hiding the stars behind them. The radiation warnings beeped more frequently. Sir, Tom called out, his voice filled with disbelief. I'm getting readings of a habitable planet ahead. Oxygen atmosphere, plant life, water. It shouldn't be possible in this environment. Maybe it's not natural, Jack suggested. Show me. The main screen changed to show a small blue-green world spinning slowly in the heart of the nebula. Hearts of its surface glowed with lights, cities, perhaps. We're being scanned, Lisa reported suddenly. Something from the planet is locking onto us. Before Jack could respond, the ship's communication system activated on its own. A face appeared on the main screen, humanoid, but clearly alien. Its skin was pale blue, with delicate ridges where eyebrows would be on a human. Its eyes were large and entirely black. "You came," the alien said, its voice translated by the ship's computer. "We didn't think anyone would hear us." Jack stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jack Miller of the Earth vessel Pioneer. We received your distress call." "I am Tor," the alien responded, "last council elder of Orpheus Prime." "Captain Miller, you must leave immediately. It's not safe." "We came to help," Jack insisted. "No one can help us now," Tor said, his voice heavy. "They will return soon. The harvesters. They've already taken half our world. Soon, they will take the rest." "Who are the harvesters?" Jack asked. A loud alarm cut through the bridge. "Captain," Tom shouted. "Large vessel approaching from the far side of the planet. It's enormous." The screen split to show a massive ship emerging from behind the planet. It was like nothing Jack had ever seen. Dark metal stretched out for kilometers, covered in strange protrusions and lights. It resembled a giant insect, predatory and alien. "They're back," Tor whispered, terror in his voice. "You must flee, Earth ship. If they capture you, they will know of your world. They will come for you next." "Captain, they're powering weapons," Tom yelled. "Evasive maneuvers," Jack ordered. "Get us out of their firing range." The Pioneer lurched as it turned sharply away from the planet. The massive alien ship fired, a beam of energy slicing through space where they had been moments before. "They're pursuing," Lisa reported, her hands gripping her console tightly. "We can't outrun them," Tom added. "Their ship is faster than ours." Jack's mind raced. They couldn't fight, couldn't run. "The nebula," he said suddenly. "Take us deeper into the nebula. The radiation might mask our signature." The Pioneer dove into the thickest part of the gas cloud, alarms blaring as radiation levels spiked. Behind them, the massive harvester ship hesitated at the edge of the dense cloud. "It's working," Tom said. "They're not following." "Captain," Lisa called. "I'm still in contact with Tor. He's transmitting data to us, information about the harvesters. He says," she paused, her face growing grave, "he says they don't just take planets, they take entire species, and they're methodically working their way across this sector of the galaxy." Jack looked at the screen, at the data streaming in. Star maps, ship specifications, attack patterns, and projected courses that, eventually, led straight to Earth. "Record everything," he ordered quietly, "and prepare a message buoy. If we don't make it back, Earth needs to know what's coming." As the Pioneer hid in the swirling gases of the nebula, Jack Miller realized that the fate of his entire species might rest on what they did next. A simple survey mission had just become the most important journey in human history. The Pioneer limped back to Earth with its engines running at half power. The escape from the Orpheus Nebula had damaged many of the ship's systems. Captain Jack Miller stood on the bridge, his uniform wrinkled from days without rest. Behind him, in the ship's small medical bay, 3 blue-skinned aliens waited nervously, the last survivors they had managed to rescue from Orpheus Prime. "Earth orbital control on screen, Captain," Lisa announced. Jack straightened his back as the face of Admiral Wilson appeared. "Captain Miller, you're 3 weeks overdue and returning without authorization. Explain yourself." "Admiral, I need to speak with the United Earth Council immediately. We've encountered a hostile alien force that poses a direct threat to Earth." The Admiral frowned. "That's a serious claim, Miller." "I have proof, sir, and witnesses." 2 hours later, Jack found himself in the grand meeting hall of the United Earth Council in Geneva. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in a semicircle, their faces showing a mix of disbelief, concern, and suspicion. Defense Minister Robert Kane, a tall man with a military bearing, spoke first. "So you're telling us that giant alien ships are coming to harvest our planet? Do you know how that sounds, Captain?" "I know exactly how it sounds, Minister," Jack replied. "But the evidence is clear. He nodded to Tom, who activated the main screen to show the recordings they had taken of the massive harvester ship. Computer simulations, said the Chinese representative dismissively. This proves nothing. Jack turned to the door. Then perhaps you'll believe them. He gestured, and Tor entered the room with the other two Orphean survivors. A wave of gasps and murmurs swept through the council. United Nations Secretary General Maria Diaz raised her hand for silence. Let's hear what our visitors have to say. Tor stepped forward, his large black eyes scanning the room. Your captain speaks the truth. The harvesters have destroyed 12 worlds in our sector alone. We were once a peaceful federation of colonies. Now, only a handful of my people survive. His voice trembled. And soon, they will come for Earth. Minister Kane stood up. Then we must prepare for war. Build more ships, weapons, defenses. No, Maria countered. If these harvesters are as advanced as the reports suggest, we can't hope to fight them with our current technology. We need allies, diplomacy. The room erupted into arguments. Some nations demanded immediate military action. Others called the whole thing a hoax. A few suggested surrendering to the harvesters before they even arrived. Jack watched with growing dismay as Earth's leaders bickered. This was exactly what Tor had warned him about during their journey to Earth. The harvesters targeted divided worlds. Major General Alan Blake, a decorated veteran known for his skepticism, approached Tor during a break in the proceedings. Why Earth? He asked bluntly. Why would these harvesters bother with us when there must be richer worlds out there? Tor looked at him sadly. They don't choose planets randomly. They study, they watch. They target worlds that are divided, whose people fight amongst themselves. It makes their work easier. Blake frowned. And how do they know which worlds are divided? They send scouts first, small ships that observe but don't engage. Like the unidentified objects our satellites have been tracking for the past year, Blake murmured, his face paling. When the council reconvened, Blake took the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, I've spent my career being cautious about extraterrestrial threats. But after speaking with Tor, I believe we are indeed in danger. He looked around the room. And our greatest weakness isn't our technology or our defenses. It's this, right here, our inability to work together. The room fell silent. The harvesters are counting on our division, Jack added, stepping forward. They expect us to fight amongst ourselves until it's too late. We need to prove them wrong. Over the next few days, the debate continued. Nations argued over resources, leadership, and strategies. But slowly, something began to change. The reality of extinction pushed old enemies to reluctant cooperation. Russia and the United States agreed to share military technology. China offered its industrial capacity. The European Union provided scientific expertise. Smaller nations contributed resources and personnel. 6 weeks after the pioneers' return, Jack stood on a platform in New York City, addressing not just the United Nations, but the entire world via broadcast. Behind him stood Tor and the other Orphean survivors, along with Earth's most prominent leaders. The harvesters believe we are weak because we are different, Jack said, his voice carrying to billions of viewers. They see our diversity as division. But they're wrong. He gestured to the leaders behind him. For the first time in human history, we stand truly united, not as nations or factions, but as humans, as Earthlings. Maria Diaz stepped forward. Today, we announce the formation of the Earth Defense Alliance. All nations, all resources, all focused on a single goal: survival. Minister Kane, once the voice of military aggression, now stood shoulder to shoulder with former adversaries. Our scientists estimate we have less than 2 years before the harvester fleet arrives. We will be ready. Major General Blake revealed the next phase. Operation Lighthouse begins now. A 3-part strategy to strengthen our defenses, seek allies among the stars, and develop technologies to counter the harvester threat. The response around the world wasn't universal celebration. Some protested, claiming it was all a lie to force global government. Others hoarded supplies, preparing for the worst. But for the majority, a strange new feeling began to take hold, a sense of common purpose that transcended borders and old hatreds. In a small apartment overlooking the Hudson River, Jack watched the sun set on a changed world. Tor stood beside him. "Your people surprise me," the alien said. "When we first met, you told me humans were divided, that you fought wars amongst yourselves for centuries." "We did," Jack acknowledged. "We still have our differences. Yet now you work together." Jack smiled faintly. Maybe that's the one thing the harvesters didn't count on. That the threat of them would do what nothing else could: unite us. Tor's expression was hard to read, but Jack thought he detected hope in those alien eyes. Then perhaps there is a chance after all. As night fell over Earth, lights came on in homes and buildings. But for the first time, those lights didn't just represent separate lives and nations. They were beacons of a united planet, preparing to face the darkness together. 6 months after Earth learned about the harvester threat, the planet was barely recognizable. Where once stood separate nations with guarded borders, now existed a single united front preparing for survival. Commander Diane Foster stood on the bridge of the Envoy, Earth's newest and fastest ship. Built with the combined technology of 12 nations, it was a marvel that would have been impossible just a year ago. She looked at her crew: Russian, American, Chinese, Nigerian, Brazilian, and more, all working together seamlessly. "Final checks complete, Commander," reported her first officer. "We're ready for departure." Diane nodded. "Begin launch sequence." Next to her stood Tor, the Orphean elder who had become Earth's guide to the stars. His blue skin had darkened slightly during his time on Earth, adapting to the new environment. "The coordinates for the Proxima system are set," he said. "If my information is correct, they have thus far avoided harvester detection." "Let's hope they're willing to talk to us," Diane replied. The Envoy was the first of 3 ships tasked with finding potential allies among the stars. It was a desperate mission. Earth needed friends, and quickly. The ship lifted off smoothly, breaking through Earth's atmosphere and accelerating to speeds no human vessel had achieved before. As they prepared for their first jump to faster-than-light travel, Diane couldn't help but marvel at how quickly humans had advanced their technology when they worked together. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Professor James Wilson hunched over his workbench in the Global Defense Research Center. What had once been CERN in Switzerland was now the heart of Earth's scientific efforts against the harvesters. Around him, hundreds of scientists from every corner of the planet worked on different aspects of the same problem: how to fight an enemy centuries ahead of them technologically. James rubbed his tired eyes. For weeks, he had been studying the data from the harvester ship that attacked the Pioneer. Something about their communication patterns fascinated him. "You should rest," said a voice behind him. It was Jack Miller, now serving as the liaison between the military and scientific divisions. "I'm close to something," James insisted. "Look at this." He pointed to a display showing wave patterns. "The harvesters use quantum-entangled communications. That's why we can't intercept or jam their signals in normal space." Jack frowned. "Is that bad news?" "Not necessarily." James's eyes lit up with excitement. "Quantum entanglement works both ways. If we can access their network, we might be able to inject false data into their communications, make them see things that aren't there, or miss things that are." "Can you make it work?" Jack asked. James grinned. "Give me 2 months and 50 more physicists." Jack nodded. "You've got 1 month and 100 physicists." On the moon, Admiral John Stone watched as Earth's first unified space fleet took shape. Massive shipyards had been built in lunar orbit, using materials mined from the asteroid belt. Ships of all sizes were under construction, from small, fast fighters to massive carriers. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice with a thick Russian accent. General Petrov, once Stone's opponent in military exercises, now stood beside him as his second in command. Never thought I'd see the day when Russian and American ships flew side by side, Stone admitted. Never thought I'd see aliens, Petrov chuckled. Life is full of surprises. A young officer approached them with a tablet. Sir, the training results from the joint exercises. Stone reviewed the data and frowned. Still not good enough. These crews need to function as one unit, not as separate nations working together. What do you suggest? Petrov asked. Stone thought for a moment. Remix all the crews. No ship should have more than 10% of its crew from any single nation. Force them to overcome their differences. Petrov raised an eyebrow. That will cause chaos in the short term. We don't have long term, Stone replied grimly. The harvesters will be here in 18 months. The envoy had visited 7 potential ally worlds in 4 months. Some meetings went well, others poorly. But slowly, a coalition was forming. Diane sat across from the leader of the Centauri, a humanoid species with silver skin and 4 arms. So you'll join our alliance? The Centauri leader nodded his elongated head. The evidence your Orphean friend provides is compelling. If the harvesters are truly systematic in their conquest, we are all at risk. We don't offer much technology, Diane admitted. Earth is young compared to your civilization. But you offer something equally valuable, the Centauri replied. You offer unity. Our worlds have watched Earth for centuries. Your species fought endless wars amongst yourselves. Yet, when faced with extinction, you put aside those differences in months. That is remarkable. Tor, who had been quiet during the meeting, spoke up. This is why I believe Earth is key to stopping the harvesters. They prey on division. Humanity has proven division can be overcome. 1 year into preparations, Earth faced its first real test. An automated alert sounded in defense headquarters around the world. A harvester scout ship had entered the solar system. Jack, now General Miller, rushed to the command center beneath Geneva. Status report. Harvester vessel approaching Jupiter's orbit, reported a controller. Small ship, likely a scout. It doesn't match any of the combat vessels in the Orphean database. They're early, Jack said quietly. The main defense fleet wasn't ready. Earth's new technologies were still being tested. This could be a disaster. Admiral Stone's face appeared on the main screen. We've detected it too. Permission to engage with the Lunar Defense Force. Jack hesitated only a moment. Permission granted. But Admiral, this is our chance to show what humanity can do when united. Don't waste it. Stone nodded grimly. Fleet command to all vessels. This is not a drill. Execute Operation First Light. Throughout the solar system, ships that had once belonged to separate nations moved as one coordinated unit. Chinese sensor arrays detected the harvesters' approach. European targeting systems locked onto it. American and Russian fighters formed the first attack wave. African and South American cruisers provided backup. The harvester scout, encountering resistance where it expected none, attempted to flee. But Professor Wilson's new quantum interference technology disrupted its navigation system. In 20 minutes, it was over. The scout ship was destroyed before it could transmit any data back to its fleet. In the command center, cheers erupted. Jack allowed himself a small smile. It was a minor victory. One small scout versus a coordinated defense. But it proved something vital. Humanity could fight as one. Later that night, Jack stood with Tor on an observation deck, looking up at the stars. Your people did well today, Tor said. It was just one scout, Jack replied. The real fleet will be much harder to stop. True, but today, the harvesters lost something precious, the element of surprise, and humanity gained something even more valuable. What's that? Tor's alien face formed what Jack had learned was a smile. Hope. The day everyone feared finally arrived. 18 months after Earth first learned of the harvester threat, the main detection grid near Saturn lit up with warnings. This was no scout ship. This was an invasion force. Multiple ships detected, reported the officer at the main sensor station. 37 large vessels and over 100 smaller craft. General Jack Miller stood at the center of Earth Defense Command, his face grim but determined. Around him, military leaders from every nation watched the massive display as red dots appeared, representing the Harvester fleet. "They're earlier than we expected," said Admiral Stone from his command ship near Jupiter. "But we're ready." Jack nodded. "Activate the defense grid. All ships to battle stations, and get me Commander Foster." Diane Foster's face appeared on a side screen. Behind her, the bridge of the Envoy bustled with activity. "We're already moving into position, General. The Centauri fleet is with us, along with ships from 6 other allied worlds." "Remember the plan," Jack said. "Let them come to us. Jupiter's gravity will slow them down and force them to spread out." Earth had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. The combined fleet of Earth and its new allies was positioned in a carefully planned formation around Jupiter. Professor Wilson's quantum interference technology was ready to disrupt Harvester communications, and most importantly, humanity was united as never before. The Harvester ships moved with eerie precision, their black, insect-like forms blotting out the stars behind them. At their center was a massive vessel 3 times larger than any other, the command ship. "They're scanning us," reported a sensor officer. "Their formation is changing." On the main screen, the Harvester fleet shifted into an attack pattern. They had clearly not expected to find an organized defense waiting for them. Admiral Stone's voice came through clearly. "All ships, hold position. Let them make the first move." Minutes ticked by intense silence. Then, without warning, the Harvester fleet accelerated. "They're attacking," shouted someone. "Steady," Jack ordered, "just like we planned." The battle began in the space around Jupiter. Harvester weapons, beams of energy that could slice through metal like paper, lashed out at the human-alien alliance. But Earth's ships, protected by shields designed with help from their allies, held firm. "Return fire," ordered Admiral Stone. "All batteries." The Earth fleet responded with weapons of their own. Missiles with special warheads designed to penetrate Harvester shields. Energy cannons that targeted the weak points identified by Tor and the Orpheans. The space around Jupiter lit up with explosions and weapons fire. Ships from both sides took damage. 3 Earth cruisers exploded in quick succession as a group of Harvester vessels broke through the first line of defense. "They're adapting to our tactics," Jack said, watching the battle unfold. "We need to activate the quantum interference now." Professor Wilson, stationed on a science vessel near the rear of the fleet, received the order. "Activating quantum interference in 3, 2, 1. Now." Throughout the Harvester fleet, communication systems suddenly filled with false data. Ships reported enemies where there were none. Orders became garbled. Their perfect formation began to break apart. "It's working," exclaimed Admiral Stone. All ships pressed the advantage. The Earth-led coalition surged forward. For the first time, the Harvesters were experiencing what so many of their victims had felt: confusion, disarray, fear. But the Harvester commander was clever. Despite the communication problems, the command ship began broadcasting a powerful override signal. Slowly, the Harvester fleet regained cohesion. "They're countering the interference," Professor Wilson reported frantically. "I need time to adjust our algorithm." Jack watched as the battle began to turn against them. The initial advantage was slipping away. More Earth ships were being hit. More allies were falling back with damage. "Admiral," Jack called to Stone, "we need to take out that command ship. It's the key to their coordination." "Agreed," Stone replied, "but our ships can't get close enough. Their point defenses are too strong." Jack made a decision. "I'm taking the Defender." The Defender was Earth's newest flagship, built with the best technology from all nations and their alien allies. It was meant to be Jack's command ship once the battle was won. "General, that's too risky," Stone protested. "The Defender is powerful, but it can't take on the command ship alone." "It won't be alone," Jack replied. He turned to his communications officer. "Get me Commander Foster." Minutes later, Jack stood on the bridge of the Defender as it accelerated toward the heart of the Harvester fleet. Flanking it were ships from the Centauri and other allied races, all power to forward shields. Jack ordered, "Weapon systems at maximum charge. We only get one shot at this." The small attack group plunged through the chaotic battle, taking fire from all sides. 2 allied ships exploded. The Defender's shields flared blue as they absorbed hit after hit. "Shields at 60%, reported the tactical officer. 53%, 47%. "Stay on course," Jack ordered, his knuckles white as he gripped the command rail. The massive Harvester command ship grew larger on their view screen. It was firing everything it had at them now, recognizing the threat. "Shields at 30%. A massive hit rocked the Defender. Jack was thrown to the floor as part of the bridge exploded in sparks and smoke. He felt a sharp pain in his side, shrapnel from an exploding console. 20,000 kilometers to target, shouted the navigator through the smoke. Jack pulled himself up, blood seeping through his uniform. Around him, his crew, men and women from a dozen nations who would have been enemies just 2 years ago, worked together with perfect coordination despite the chaos. "Fire everything we have on my mark," Jack said, his voice steady despite the pain. "Target their central command node." The Harvester ship filled their view screen now, its massive weapons turning to finish them off. 10,000 kilometers. "Fire," Jack ordered. The Defender unleashed its full arsenal, missiles, energy beams, and a special weapon designed by Professor Wilson that targeted the quantum communication system at the heart of the Harvester ship. The command ship's shields flared and then collapsed under the assault. The Defender's weapons tore into its hull, causing cascading explosions throughout the massive vessel. "Direct hit," shouted the tactical officer. "Their central node is destroyed." Jack felt the Defender shudder as another hit struck them. "Shields failing. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. "Get us out of here," Jack ordered weakly, the pain from his wound growing worse. "Full reverse." As the Defender limped away from the mortally wounded Harvester command ship, Jack saw the effects ripple through the enemy fleet. Without their central coordination, and with the quantum interference still disrupting their remaining communications, the Harvester ships began to lose formation. Some fired on friendly vessels in confusion. Admiral Stone's voice came through the damaged comm system. "All ships, press the attack. The enemy is in disarray." Jack watched the battle turn as consciousness began to slip away from him. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was the Harvester command ship breaking apart, its destruction lighting up the space around Jupiter like a new sun being born. Jack Miller opened his eyes slowly, the bright white light above him causing him to squint. For a moment, he thought he might be dead. Then the pain in his side reminded him he was very much alive. "Welcome back, General," said a familiar voice. Jack turned his head to see Admiral Stone sitting beside his bed. They were in an orbital medical facility above Earth. Through the window, Jack could see the blue planet spinning peacefully below. "The battle?" Jack asked, his voice rough from disuse. "We won," Stone said simply. "After you took out their command ship, the remaining Harvesters tried to retreat. We destroyed most of them before they could jump to light speed. A few escaped, but they won't be back anytime soon." Jack tried to sit up but winced in pain. "Casualties?" Stone's face grew solemn. "Heavy. We lost 37 ships and nearly 20,000 personnel. The Centauri and our other allies lost almost as many." He paused. "But Earth stands, and for the first time in history, humanity fought as one." Jack nodded slowly, feeling the weight of those who had died under his command. "The Defender. Badly damaged but salvageable. Your crew got you to a medical shuttle just in time." Stone smiled slightly. "You've been unconscious for 3 weeks. There are a lot of people waiting to see you." Over the next few days, Jack's room filled with visitors. Admiral Stone, Commander Foster, Professor Wilson, leaders from Earth's nations, and representatives from their alien allies. But the most surprising visitor came on the fifth day. Tor entered the room quietly. The Orphean elder looked different somehow, more confident, less haunted. "My friend," Tor said, taking the seat beside Jack's bed. "You have done what many thought impossible." "We all did," Jack corrected him. "Every person on Earth, every one of our allies." Tor nodded. "There is something I must tell you, something the Orpheans kept hidden until now." He leaned closer. The Harvesters didn't choose their targets randomly. They specifically sought out worlds with the potential to unite the galaxy. Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" "For centuries, they have studied developing civilizations. When they identified one with the ability to bring others together, to form alliances, to inspire cooperation, they destroyed it before it could reach its potential. And Earth was one of these civilizations." Jack asked. "The most promising one they had ever found." Tor's black eyes seemed to shine. "They feared you, Jack, not for your weapons or technology, but for what you could inspire others to become. They saw in humanity a dangerous quality, the ability to overcome division in the face of a greater threat." Jack thought about this for a long moment. So all this time, they weren't just conquering for resources or territory. No, they were preserving their dominance by eliminating those who might unite against them. Tor smiled slightly. "They were right to fear you." 2 months later, Jack stood in the great hall of the newly constructed Galactic Concordat on Earth. Representatives from 27 different species filled the chamber, some physically present, others appearing via hologram from their distant worlds. Secretary General Maria Diaz addressed the assembly. "Today marks the beginning of a new era. The Harvester threat is not eliminated. Intelligence suggests they are regrouping in their core territories. But they face something they never expected, a united galaxy." The hall erupted in applause and various alien expressions of approval. Jack watched from the side, still using a cane to support himself as he recovered. "The Galactic Concordat will serve as both a defense alliance and a forum for cultural exchange," Maria continued. "And in honor of those who first brought us together, Earth will serve as its headquarters." After the ceremony, Jack found himself on a balcony overlooking the rebuilt city of Geneva. Professor Wilson joined him there. "Quite a view," the professor remarked. Jack nodded. "Did you ever think we'd be here, hosting representatives from across the galaxy?" "Never," Wilson admitted. 2 years ago, we didn't even know for certain that intelligent alien life existed. Now we're building alliances with them." He shook his head in wonder. "And you know what's truly remarkable? The changes here on Earth." Jack knew what he meant. The threat of the Harvesters had transformed humanity. Old enemies had become allies. Resources once spent on internal conflicts were now directed toward exploration, defense, and cooperation. Nations still existed, but the borders between them had become increasingly meaningless. "We've received a new transmission," Wilson said after a moment. "From deep within Harvester territory. It's from a species called the Viridians. They've been enslaved by the Harvesters for generations, but they've heard about what happened at Jupiter. They're asking for help to stage their own rebellion." Jack turned to look at the professor. "What did the council decide?" "They're voting tomorrow, but it's all but certain. We're going to help them." Jack smiled slightly. From receiving a plea for help to answering one. Full circle. Later that evening, Jack visited the memorial that had been built to honor those lost in the Battle of Jupiter. Names from every nation on Earth and from 7 alien worlds were etched into the circular wall. At the center stood a simple stone pedestal with the words "Unity through Diversity" carved in 100 different languages. As Jack placed his hand on the cool stone, a young officer approached him. "General Miller, sorry to disturb you, sir, but the preparations for the Viridian mission are ready for your review." Jack nodded. "Thank you, Lieutenant. I'll be there shortly." After the officer left, Jack took one more moment to look at the memorial. He thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a single distress call picked up by the Pioneer to becoming the center of a galactic alliance. From a divided world barely able to cooperate on global issues to the inspiration for dozens of species to stand against tyranny. "We heard your call," Jack whispered to the names on the wall. "And because of you, we found our voice." As the sun set over Earth, lights began to come on across the planet. But to Jack, they no longer represented separate nations and peoples. They were the beacons of a united world. A light in the darkness that was spreading across the stars, shaking the galaxy to its very core. The observation deck of Outpost Zeta 9 was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Officer Trill stared at his screen, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the unusual readings. "Sir, I'm detecting an unknown vessel approaching our border," Trill reported, his voice betraying a hint of concern. Admiral Vex looked up from his command console. With blue-gray skin and an imposing ridge of bony plates running from his forehead to the back of his neck, Vex had spent 50 cycles in service to the Galactic Hegemony. He had seen everything, or so he thought. "Show me," he ordered, moving to Trill's station with practiced grace despite his massive frame. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a small ship moving at sublight speed toward their border. Its design was unlike anything in the Hegemony database. Blocky, inefficient, with visible weld marks and exposed heat sinks. "Is that primitive?" Vex asked, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Yes, Admiral. Based on our scans, this vessel appears to be from the species known as humans. They achieved FTL travel only 20 cycles ago." Vex waved a dismissive hand. "Humans, those bips from the backwater system. They're hardly worth our attention." The Galactic Hegemony ruled over 300 star systems with unquestioned authority. Their technology was the pinnacle of achievement, their military might unmatched across known space. New species were either welcomed as subjects or crushed if they resisted. It was the way of things. "The vessel is transmitting a message, sir," Trill said. "It appears to be a greeting in several languages." "Put together a first contact team," Vex decided. "Senior Envoy Trax should lead it. Let's see what these humans want before they blunder into our territory." Aboard the HSS Defiant, Captain Robert Mason paced the bridge. The Defiant was humanity's newest deep space exploration vessel, designed to make first contact with other civilizations. After centuries of wondering if they were alone in the universe, humans had spent the last 20 years eagerly exploring the stars. "Any response to our greeting, Lieutenant?" Mason asked. Communications Officer Lisa Bell shook her head. "Nothing yet, Captain. But our sensors show increased activity on that station. I think they noticed us." Mason nodded, running a hand through his short brown hair. At 45, he was considered one of Earth's most experienced space captains, though that wasn't saying much. Humanity was new to the galactic neighborhood. "Keep broadcasting our peaceful intentions. Let's show them humans know how to be good neighbors." Chief Science Officer Alan Park approached with a tablet. "Captain, our scans of the alien outpost are complete. Their technology is, well, it's centuries beyond ours. The energy readings alone suggest power generation methods we've only theorized about." Mason whistled. "Well, let's hope they're friendly, then." "Captain," Bell called out suddenly, "we're detecting a small vessel launching from the station. It's heading straight for us." The bridge crew tensed. Humanity's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization was moments away. "Maintain position," Mason ordered. "Keep weapons powered down. Let's not give them any reason to think we're hostile." Senior Envoy Trax reviewed the preliminary data on humans as his diplomatic shuttle approached the alien vessel. Humans were an unusual species, short-lived but remarkably adaptable. They had progressed from primitive technology to space travel in less than 2,000 years, a pace that concerned some hegemony analysts. "Remember," Trax addressed his team of 4 diplomats and 2 security officers, "these humans are new to space. They may not understand proper protocol. Our job is to assess their intentions and determine if they can be peacefully integrated into the hegemony." The shuttle's pilot called out, approaching the human vessel now, envoy. Their design is most unusual. Trax looked through the view screen at the human ship. It was indeed strange, practical rather than elegant, with visible modifications and repairs. Unlike the sleek, biologically inspired designs of hegemony vessels, this ship looked like it had been built by beings who brute forced their way into space. Open a communication channel using the translation matrix, Trax ordered. The communications officer complied, but frowned. Sir, there seems to be an issue with the translation. Their language structure is peculiar. Do your best, Trax said. Tell them we come in peace. On the Defiant, alarms suddenly blared. Captain, the alien shuttle is emitting some kind of energy beam directed at us, shouted Security Chief Morgan Jones. Is it a weapon? Mason demanded. I don't think so, Park replied, studying his instruments. The energy signature doesn't match any weapon profile. It might be a communication attempt, but it's interfering with our systems. Lisa Bell gripped her console. Captain, our translation computer is going haywire. It's interpreting their message as a threat. A threat? Are you sure? Mason asked. The computer is translating their message as prepare for subjugation, but there must be an error in the matrix, Bell explained, fingers flying over her keyboard. Before Mason could respond, the ship's automated defense system, detecting what it interpreted as a hostile scan, activated. A warning shot, really just a low-powered energy pulse, fired automatically. Weapons just fired, Jones shouted in disbelief. The automated defense system activated. Mason's face paled. Override. Shut it down now. But it was too late. The warning pulse, harmless by human military standards, struck the alien shuttle's hull. To everyone's horror, the seemingly advanced vessel flickered and then exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Silence fell over the Defiance bridge. What just happened? Mason whispered. Park checked his readings, hands shaking. Their hull, it must have been made of some material that resonated catastrophically with our energy pulse. Captain, they're gone. Back at Outpost Zeta 9, Admiral Vex watched in stunned silence as the diplomatic shuttle was destroyed. The humans' primitive weapon had somehow penetrated the shuttle's advanced shields, as if they weren't even there. Impossible, he breathed. Officer Trill's voice shook as he reported. All hands lost, Admiral. The human vessel is powering its engines. Vex's shock quickly transformed into cold fury. They lured us in with talk of peace, then struck without warning. These humans are more dangerous than we thought. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to the High Command. Tell them we've encountered a hostile species with weapons capable of bypassing our shields. Request a battle fleet immediately. Looking back at the screen where the human vessel was quickly retreating, Vex narrowed his eyes. They've made a grave mistake. The hegemony will not suffer such an insult. We will crush these humans before they become a true threat. Captain Mason gave the order all captains dread. Maximum speed back to Earth. We need to warn them. His voice was steady despite the chaos of the moment. This was a terrible accident, but those aliens won't know that. We need to prepare. As the Defiance engines pushed to their limits, Mason stared out at the stars. Humanity's first contact had gone catastrophically wrong, not through malice, but through misunderstanding and technological incompatibility. How long until we reach Earth? He asked quietly. 3 days at maximum speed, Captain, the navigator replied. And how long before they follow us? Mason wondered aloud, though no one had an answer. In the vastness of space, the Defiant raced home, carrying news that would forever change humanity's place in the galaxy. Behind them, the machinery of an interstellar war was already beginning to turn. 3 months had passed since the disastrous first contact. The stars outside Fleet Commander Corrin's flagship gleamed cold and distant as he surveyed the holographic display of the approaching human solar system. Status report. Corin demanded, his gray-scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the bridge displays. Strategic Officer Mech stepped forward, her thin fingers tapping on a datapad. The invasion fleet is in perfect formation, Commander. 32 warships, including our flagship, the Invincible. We will reach the human system in 6 hours. Corin nodded with satisfaction. The galactic hegemony had not ruled 300 star systems by being lenient with threats. The destruction of their diplomatic shuttle demanded a swift and decisive response. What do we know about human defenses? Corin asked. Science Officer Laura approached, her 4 eyes blinking nervously. Based on our intelligence, humans have only basic orbital defenses around their homeworld. Their technology is at least 200 cycles behind ours. They have no formal military fleet, just exploration and trading vessels. Corin let out a sound that passed for laughter among his species. This will be over quickly, then. Their primitive weapons won't even scratch our shields. Laura hesitated before speaking again. There is one strange report, Commander. Our long-range scouts detected unusual activity in the outer reaches of their solar system. The humans appear to be building something. Building what? We're not certain. The readings were unclear. Corin dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. It doesn't matter. No species at their technological level could build anything in 3 months that would threaten this fleet. The bridge crew returned to their stations, confident in their coming victory. The humans would soon learn the price of defying the hegemony. In the command center beneath Earth's surface, General James Wilson studied the incoming reports with a grim expression. Around him, military officers from a dozen nations worked frantically at their stations. They're coming, Wilson announced to the room. The alien fleet will reach our system in 6 hours. The news was met with tense silence. Humanity had spent the past 3 months preparing for this moment, ever since the HSS Defiant had returned with news of the disastrous first contact. Colonel Anna Foster, Wilson's second-in-command, spoke up. Is the Titan ready? Wilson nodded slowly. As ready as it can be, given the time constraints. It's our only chance. Sir, a young lieutenant called out. Captain Miller is on the line from the Titan. Wilson moved to the communication station and accepted the call. The face of Kate Miller, former mining colony administrator and now captain of humanity's first true warship, appeared on screen. General. Miller greeted him, dark circles under her eyes betraying the sleepless months of preparation. Final systems check is complete. The Titan is operational. Operational isn't the same as battle-ready, Captain, Wilson reminded her. Miller's tired face broke into a determined smile. No, sir, it isn't. But it's the best we got. The crew is ready. We know what's at stake. Wilson nodded. Godspeed, Captain. All of humanity is counting on you. As the call ended, Foster moved to Wilson's side. Do you think it will work? She asked quietly. Wilson stared at the tactical display, showing the approaching alien fleet. It has to. Fleet Commander Corin was reviewing the invasion plan when alarms blared across the bridge of the Invincible. Commander, the sensor officer called out. We're detecting a massive object at the edge of the human system. Show me, Corin ordered. The main view screen shifted to show a distant object silhouetted against the darkness of space. As the sensors focused, the bridge crew fell silent in disbelief. The object was enormous, several kilometers long. Its shape was irregular, like nothing in the hegemony design archives. It appeared to be cobbled together from different structures, with visible seams and mismatched sections. What is that? Corin demanded. Science Officer Laura studied her readings, mandibles clicking in confusion. It appears to be a ship, Commander. A human ship. Impossible, Corin snapped. Humans don't have the technology to build vessels of that size. Laura zoomed in on different sections of the strange craft. It's not built from scratch, Commander. It looks like they've connected various structures together. What appear to be mining platforms, space stations, cargo haulers, all retrofitted and joined together. Strategic Officer Mech laughed, a harsh clicking sound. They've made a junkyard creation and called it a warship. This is what they send against us. Corin wasn't laughing. Size alone doesn't make it a threat, but we should not underestimate them. What weapons do they have? Scanning, Laura replied. After a moment, she continued, This is strange. I'm detecting what appear to be mining lasers, but they've been modified. There are also large magnetic accelerator tubes that might be weapons, though they resemble ore processors. They've turned mining equipment into weapons, Mech asked incredulously. It would appear so, Laura confirmed. Corin considered this information. It doesn't matter what they've cobbled together. Nothing in their technological arsenal can penetrate our shields. Prepare the fleet for engagement. Aboard the HS Titan, Captain Kate Miller stood on the bridge of what was surely the strangest warship ever created. Around her, the crew worked at stations that had been hastily installed in what used to be the administrative center of a mining platform. They've spotted us, Tactical Officer Jack Reed announced, a former video game designer who had been recruited for his unconventional thinking. Reed had spent the last 3 months helping transform mining systems into weapons. Good, Miller replied. That was the plan. Let them get a good look at us. Through the view screen, she could see the approaching alien fleet, sleek, elegant ships that spoke of centuries of advanced engineering. They made the Titan look like exactly what it was, a desperate creation built by a species fighting for its survival. All stations report, Miller ordered. Engineering ready. Came the voice of Tom Wilson, a brilliant mining engineer who had pioneered new power routing methods to make the Titan functional. The reactors are stable, but remember we can't push them past 80% for more than 10 minutes. Weapons ready, Reed reported. Mining lasers charge. Magnetic accelerators loaded with the special packages. Life support functioning. Another voice called out. Those sections C through F still have pressure inconsistencies. Miller nodded. This cobbled-together vessel was humanity's best hope. A ship that should not exist, built by a species that refused to surrender. Open a channel to the alien fleet, Miller ordered. Communications Officer David Lee worked his console. Channel open, Captain. Miller straightened her shoulders. This is Captain Kate Miller of the human spaceship Titan. We know why you've come. We regret the loss of your diplomatic vessel, but it was a tragic accident caused by translation errors. We request peaceful dialogue. The response came quickly. A harsh, clicking language translated by their computers into English. This is Fleet Commander Corin of the Galactic Hegemony. Your primitive deception will not save you. Surrender your world immediately, or face total destruction. Miller looked around at her crew, engineers, miners, scientists, and civilians who had worked impossibly hard to create this vessel. None of them were trained for war, but each was ready to fight for their world. All hands, Miller announced shipwide, battle stations. This is what we built the Titan for. Let's show them what humans can do. As the Hegemony fleet approached in perfect formation, the impossible human ship moved to meet them. The Battle of Sol was about to begin. The distance between the two fleets closed rapidly. On the bridge of the Invincible, Fleet Commander Corin watched with growing anticipation as the human vessel grew larger on the main view screen. The human ship is maintaining course directly toward us, Strategic Officer Mech reported. No evasive maneuvers. No sign they understand proper space combat tactics. As expected, Corin replied confidently. Prepare main weapons. Target their central section. One hit should be enough to show them the futility of resistance. The Hegemony fleet moved into attack formation with practiced precision. 32 warships, arranged in a three-dimensional pattern designed to focus firepower while minimizing exposure to enemy weapons. It was a formation that had won hundreds of battles across the galaxy. All ships report ready, Commander, Mech announced. Corin leaned forward in his command chair. Fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Hegemony vessels, converging on the massive human ship. The bridge crew watched, expecting to see the patchwork vessel break apart under their assault. Instead, something unexpected happened. "Commander," Science Officer Laura called out in surprise. "The human ship has some kind of shield technology." On the view screen, a flickering blue barrier had appeared around the Titan, absorbing much of the hegemony attack. The shield wasn't perfect. Parts of it failed under the assault, and several beams struck the hull, leaving glowing impact points. But the ship remained intact. "Impossible," Corin hissed. "They shouldn't have shield technology. It's not like our shields," Laura explained quickly. "It appears to be some kind of magnetic field, similar to what might be used in mining operations to contain plasma. They've adapted it as a defensive measure." Before Corin could respond, the massive human vessel changed. Sections of its irregular hull shifted, revealing what looked like modified mining equipment. "They're returning fire," Mech warned. On the Titan's bridge, Captain Miller gripped her command console as the ship shuddered under the alien attack. "Shields holding at 62%, Reed reported. 3 hull breaches in sections T, F, and K, repair teams responding." "Return fire," Miller ordered. "Let's see if Tom's modifications work." Reed nodded and activated the weapons systems. Throughout the massive ship, former mining lasers, now supercharged and focused to military specifications, powered up. The magnetic accelerators, originally designed to launch containers of ore, prepared to fire their new payload. "Firing pattern Alpha," Reed called out. The Titan unleashed its first volley. Instead of firing directly at the alien vessels, the repurposed mining lasers targeted points in space around the hegemony ships, creating a web-like pattern. On the Invincible, alarms blared as sensors detected the strange attack pattern. "They're missing," Mech said in confusion. "Their targeting systems must be primitive." Science Officer Laura wasn't so sure. "Wait, those aren't random points. They're creating a geometric pattern around our fleet." Suddenly, the space between the energy beams seemed to warp and distort. Several hegemony ships reported drive system fluctuations. "What's happening?" Corin demanded. "The humans are using their mining lasers to heat plasma in specific patterns," Laura explained, her 4 eyes wide with realization. "They're creating localized distortions in space that are interfering with our engines." Before Corin could process this information, the human ship launched its second attack. The magnetic accelerators fired, sending hundreds of small objects toward the hegemony fleet. "Incoming projectiles," Mech warned. "Minimal threat. Our shields will." The projectiles detonated before reaching the hegemony shields, releasing clouds of metallic dust that spread quickly through space. As the dust made contact with the energy shields of the hegemony vessels, it created numerous small electrical arcs and feedback loops. "Shields weakening," Mech reported in alarm. "The dust is creating interference patterns in our shield matrix." Corin could hardly believe what he was seeing. These humans, with their primitive technology, had found a way to counter the hegemony's most advanced defensive systems. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. "Recalibrate shields and prepare for another attack." Aboard the Titan, a cheer went up as the crew saw their weapons having an effect on the alien fleet. "It's working," Reed exclaimed. "Their shields are fluctuating." Miller allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Tom, how are our power levels?" From engineering, Tom Wilson's stressed voice came through. "We're at 73% and holding, but these reactors weren't designed for combat. We need to be careful." "Understood," Miller replied. "Jack, prepare the next attack sequence." As Reed worked at his tactical station, Miller studied the alien fleet. They were regrouping, adapting to the human attack strategies. The element of surprise wouldn't help them much longer. "Captain," Communications Officer Lee called out, "I'm detecting unusual transmissions from the alien fleet. I think they're confused." "Good," Miller said. "Confusion works in our favor. Let's give them something else to think about." "Activate maneuvering system." The massive Titan, despite its size and patchwork construction, began to move in ways that defied conventional space tactics. Instead of the clean, predictable patterns used by most space vessels, the Titan moved erratically, sections of the ship rotating independently to present different weapons angles. On the Invincible, the hegemony officers watched in bewilderment as the human ship performed maneuvers that should have torn it apart. "How are they moving like that?" Mech asked. "Their ship structure shouldn't allow for such movements." Laura studied her readings. They've installed independent thruster systems on different sections. Each part can move semi-independently within structural limits. It's ingenious in a crude way. Corin growled in frustration. "Enough of this. All ships, focus fire on their central section. Maximum power." The hegemony fleet regrouped and unleashed another coordinated attack. This time, the barrage overwhelmed sections of the Titan's makeshift shields. Energy beams cut into the human vessel, causing explosions and venting atmosphere. "We've got them now," Corin said with satisfaction. But the human ship didn't break apart as expected. Instead, damaged sections sealed themselves off while others continued fighting. "Commander," Laura said slowly, "I believe their ship was designed with the expectation of taking damage. Each section can operate independently." "That's insane," Mech protested. "No rational shipbuilder would design a vessel expecting it to be partially destroyed." "These humans don't think like us," Laura replied. The Titan shuddered violently as the alien weapons found their mark. Miller was thrown from her chair as emergency sirens wailed throughout the ship. "Damage report," she called out, pulling herself back to her station. "Sections M through P are gone," Reed reported grimly. "Emergency bulkheads engage. We've lost the starboard mining laser array and 2 magnetic accelerators." Miller accessed the ship's status display. Nearly a quarter of the massive vessel was either destroyed or severely damaged, but the rest continued to function. "Casualties?" she asked, dreading the answer. 23 confirmed dead, 47 injured, 17 missing, Lee reported, his voice tight. Miller took a deep breath. Each loss was devastating, but they had known the risks. Reroute power from the damaged sections. "Tom, how are the reactors holding?" "I've had to shut down 2 of them," Wilson reported from engineering. "The others are stable for now, but we're down to 58% power capacity." Miller made a quick decision. "Implement attack pattern Omega. Let's show them what humans do when backed into a corner." Reed looked up from his console, eyes wide. "Captain, are you sure? That's a one-way maneuver." "I'm sure," Miller replied firmly. "Do it." As the hegemony fleet moved in for what they thought would be the killing blow, the human ship did something no space tactician would ever consider rational. The Titan deliberately broke itself apart. "Commander," Mech shouted in alarm. "The human vessel is disintegrating." Corin rose from his chair, watching in disbelief as the massive human ship split into 5 large sections, each moving independently. "Have we destroyed it?" he asked. "No," Laura replied, studying her sensors. "This is deliberate. They've separated their vessel into component sections. Each one is still powered and operational." Before the hegemony fleet could adjust to this new development, the 5 sections of the Titan accelerated in different directions, each targeting a separate group of hegemony ships. "Evasive maneuvers," Corin ordered, but it was too late. The battle had entered a new phase, and the hegemony's carefully coordinated fleet tactics were now facing a type of chaos they had never trained for. As his ship rocked from a direct hit by one of the human vessel sections, Corin realized with growing dread that this would not be the quick victory he had promised. The humans fought like no other species the hegemony had ever encountered. The Battle of Sol had only just begun. Chaos enveloped the space around Earth as the 5 sections of the Titan engaged the hegemony fleet. What had begun as a simple punishment mission for the aliens had transformed into the most confusing battle in recent hegemony history. Fleet Commander Corin stood on the bridge of the Invincible, watching as his carefully organized formation broke apart to deal with the multiple threats. 3 hegemony vessels were already severely damaged, their perfect shields overcome by the humans' unpredictable tactics. "This makes no sense," Corin growled. "How are they doing this?" Science Officer Laura worked frantically at her station, analyzing the battle data. "Commander, I need to show you something." She transferred her findings to the main display. The screen showed a detailed scan of one of the Titan's sections as it engaged a hegemony cruiser. "Look here," Laura pointed. "The humans are constantly rerouting power throughout their ship sections. When our weapons target one area, they shut it down and redirect energy elsewhere. It's like fighting an opponent who can change their vital organs at will." Strategic Officer Mech joined them at the display. "That's impossible. No ship design could allow for such flexibility." "Their ships aren't designed like ours," Laura explained. "We build our vessels to exact specifications, with each system optimized for its function. The humans, they've built redundancies, alternative pathways, manual overrides. Their ship is inefficient by our standards, but incredibly adaptable." Corin's mandibles clicked in frustration. "I want answers. How did a species this primitive develop such tactics?" "I may have found something," Laura said, displaying another screen. "I've been analyzing our database on human history. Their evolution is unusual." The display showed images of Earth and its diverse environments. "Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds with stable environments," Laura continued. "But humans come from a planet with extreme environmental variations. Deserts, ice caps, jungles, oceans. Their world has experienced multiple extinction events, yet life persisted." She switched to images of early humans. "Unlike most sentient species, humans didn't evolve natural defenses like claws, armor, or venom. Instead, they developed intelligence and tool-making. Their entire evolutionary history has been about adapting, repurposing, and solving problems." "So what?" Mech asked impatiently. "So," Laura explained, "while we've spent centuries perfecting our existing technology, humans have spent millennia learning to improvise. When faced with a threat, they don't follow standard protocols. They innovate." Corin stared at the battle unfolding outside. "You're saying we're not fighting against human technology. We're fighting against human adaptability." "Exactly," Laura confirmed. "And there's more. According to intercepted communications, they built the Titan in just 3 months after the first contact incident." 3 months? Mech exclaimed. "That's impossible." "Not for humans, apparently," Laura replied. "They cannibalized existing structures, repurposed mining technology, and worked around the clock. What they lack in technological advancement, they'd make up for in speed and creativity." As if to emphasize her point, the ship rocked from another impact. The battle was not going well. In the heart of Section Alpha, what had once been the Titan's bridge, Captain Miller coordinated the divided ship's attack. The separation had been a desperate measure, but it was working better than expected. "Section Charlie reports their reactor is approaching critical," Lee relayed. "They're requesting permission to execute final protocol." Miller closed her eyes briefly. Final protocol meant a deliberate overload, sacrificing the section to damage as many enemy ships as possible. "Tell them to proceed," she ordered, "and make sure the crew evacuates to the emergency pods." Reed looked up from his tactical display. "Enemy fleet is regrouping. I think they're adapting to our strategies." "They were bound to eventually," Miller acknowledged. "Time for Phase 2. Signal sections Bravo and Delta to implement the stealth approach." As she gave the order, Miller noticed something strange on one of the sensor displays. "What's that?" "Near the alien flagship." Reed studied his screens. "Looks like one of their smaller vessels is breaking formation, Captain. Moving away from the battle." Miller frowned. "Track it. That's not a normal tactical movement." Lieutenant Dax had served the hegemony loyally for 15 cycles. As an intelligence officer aboard the scout ship Observer, his role in this mission had been to analyze human combat tactics and report weaknesses. But what he had seen in the past 2 hours had changed everything. Course set for the dark side of the human moon, he told his small crew of 5. Maintain communications blackout. Sir, his navigator questioned, these aren't our orders. The fleet commander hasn't authorized withdrawal. This isn't withdrawal, Dax replied firmly. It's information gathering. I need a better vantage point to observe the human tactics. It wasn't entirely a lie. Dax did want to observe, but not for the reasons his crew believed. What he had seen today had shaken his faith in hegemony superiority. These humans, using technology centuries behind their own, had fought the mighty hegemony to a standstill. As the observer moved away from the main battle, Dax accessed his private terminal and began compiling all the data he had collected on human innovation and adaptability. The hegemony leadership needed to understand what they were really facing. And if they wouldn't listen, well, Dax was beginning to think the humans deserved to know exactly what they were up against. Back on the Invincible, Corin was forced to make a difficult decision. Order all ships to regroup at coordinates Alpha 7, he commanded. We need to reassess our strategy. You're ordering a retreat, Commander? Mech asked in disbelief. A tactical repositioning, Corin corrected harshly. This enemy doesn't fight according to any known doctrine. We need to adapt our approach. As the hegemony ships began to pull back to the designated coordinates, Laura continued her analysis of human history and biology. What she found only deepened her fascination. Commander, I've discovered something remarkable about human physiology, she reported. Their bodies are much less specialized than most sentient species. They can survive in a wider range of environments, eat a greater variety of foods, and recover from injuries that would kill most species. How is this relevant to the battle? Corin asked impatiently. Because they've built their ship the same way they've evolved, Laura explained. Adaptable, redundant, capable of functioning even when damaged. They don't optimize. They prepare for failure and recovery. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The hegemony had always believed that superior technology would prevail in any conflict, but the humans were challenging that fundamental assumption. There's something else, Laura added, her voice lower. According to my analysis of transmission patterns, the human ship is receiving constant updates from their planet. They're learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics in real time with input from their entire species. You mean? Mech began. I mean we're not fighting one ship, Laura concluded. We're fighting an entire planet of problem solvers who are working together to defeat us. As the alien fleet pulled back, Miller took the opportunity to check in with the remaining sections of the Titan. Section Charlie had successfully executed the final protocol, damaging 3 enemy vessels at the cost of their own. The remaining 3 sections, Alpha, Bravo, and Delta, were still operational, though heavily damaged. Status report, Miller ordered. Section Alpha at 43% power capacity, Reed reported. Life support stable. Weapons at 38%. Bravo reports 51% power, but their maneuvering thrusters are failing, Lee added. Delta is in worst shape, 29% power and multiple hull breaches. Miller considered their options. They couldn't win a prolonged battle, but they had already achieved more than anyone had thought possible. They had forced the mighty alien fleet to retreat and regroup. New transmission coming in, Lee suddenly announced. It's not from Earth. And it's not on any hegemony frequency we've intercepted. Put it through, Miller ordered cautiously. A voice spoke in accented but understandable English. Human vessel, this is Lieutenant Dax of the Hegemony Scout Ship Observer. I wish to establish private communications. Miller exchanged surprised looks with her bridge crew. This could be a trap, Reed warned. Maybe, Miller agreed, but let's hear what he has to say. Open a secure channel. As the connection established, Miller found herself face to face with an alien who might hold the key to ending this conflict before Earth faced total devastation. The battle had reached a turning point, but not the one either side had expected. Captain Kate Miller studied the alien face on her view screen. Lieutenant Dax looked similar to the other hegemony officers he had glimpsed during the battle, but something in his four eyes suggested a different perspective. "I'm listening," Miller said cautiously. "Why have you broken from your fleet?" "Because this conflict is based on a misunderstanding," Dax replied. "And because I have information that could save both our species from unnecessary bloodshed." Miller remained skeptical. "The bloodshed began when your people declared war after an accident." "Yes," Dax agreed, surprising her. "An accident that our leaders interpreted as an attack. But I've analyzed the data from that encounter. Your warning shot wasn't meant to destroy our shuttle. It was the interaction between our shield technology and your energy pulse that caused the catastrophic reaction." Reed whispered from his station, "Captain, he could be trying to delay us while their fleet regroups." Miller nodded slightly to acknowledge Reed's concern. "If you genuinely want peace, Lieutenant, you're going to need to offer more than just talk." "I understand your suspicion," Dax said. "So I'll offer this. The hegemony fleet has a weakness. The primary command network linking all vessels uses quantum entanglement for instantaneous communication. This network is shielded, but vulnerable to certain radiation frequencies." Miller leaned forward. "And you're willing to give us these frequencies. Why would you betray your own people?" Dax's mandibles clicked in what might have been a sigh. "Because what I've seen today has made me question everything. The hegemony has conquered hundreds of worlds based on our technological superiority. We believe that advancement follows a predictable path, that all species develop in the same way we did." He gestured at his view screen, presumably showing the battle outside. "But you humans, you've taken a completely different evolutionary path. You adapt, improvise, and overcome in ways my people never considered possible. If we destroy you now, the galaxy loses something unique and valuable." Miller considered his words carefully. This could still be a trap, but something in Dax's manner suggested sincerity. "If we use this information," she said finally, "what do you want in return?" "A chance for real communication," Dax replied. "Help me convince my commander that this war is unnecessary." On the bridge of the Invincible, Fleet Commander Corrin was preparing for a renewed assault when his communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. They're requesting a direct communication with you." Corrin's first instinct was to refuse, but Science Officer Laura spoke up. "Commander, this could provide valuable insight into their thinking. I recommend accepting." After a moment's consideration, Corrin nodded. "Put them through." The main view screen activated, showing a human female in what appeared to be a damaged command center. Beside her, to Corrin's shock, was the unmistakable image of Lieutenant Dax. "What is the meaning of this?" Corrin demanded. "Lieutenant Dax, explain your presence on an enemy vessel." "I'm transmitting from my ship, Commander," Dax clarified. "I've established communication with the humans to correct a grave misunderstanding." The human captain spoke next. "I am Captain Kate Miller of Earth. The destruction of your diplomatic shuttle 3 months ago was an accident, a tragic result of incompatible technologies and translation errors." "Convenient excuses," Corrin replied dismissively. "Not excuses, Commander," Dax interjected. "I've analyzed the data from the incident. Their defensive system issued a warning pulse, not intended to destroy. It was the interaction between that pulse and our shield harmonics that caused the catastrophic failure." Laura moved to her console, checking Dax's claims against their own records. After a moment, she looked up in surprise. "He's right, Commander. The energy signature from the human vessel was too weak to have caused damage under normal circumstances. Our shields must have had a resonance vulnerability to their specific frequency." Corrin's mandibles clicked in agitation. Even if true, they still fired upon a diplomatic vessel. "A misunderstanding," Miller insisted. "Our automated defense system interpreted your scan as hostile. We had no intention of starting a war." Before Corrin could respond, Strategic Officer Mech interrupted. "Commander, our long-range sensors are detecting multiple new contacts emerging from Earth's moon. More human vessels. The view screen split to show several small ships approaching from the dark side of Earth's moon. They were nothing like the cobbled-together Titan. These were sleek, purpose-built warships. "What is this?" Corin demanded. "More of your primitive vessels." Miller shook her head. "Not ours. We have no ships in that location." Dax looked equally confused. "Commander, those aren't human ships. The design. They're Arcturian." The bridge fell silent as everyone processed this new development. The Arcturians were an advanced species from a neighboring sector, known for their neutrality in galactic affairs. A new transmission came through, and the face of an Arcturian diplomat appeared on screen. "This is Envoy Krell of the Arcturian Confederation. We have been monitoring this conflict and wish to offer our services as mediators." Miller recovered from her surprise first. "We welcome your assistance, Envoy Krell." Corin was less enthusiastic. "The hegemony does not require outside interference in its military operations." "This is not interference, Commander," Krell replied calmly. "This is an opportunity to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Our analysis confirms what Lieutenant Dax has discovered. The initial incident was indeed an unfortunate accident caused by technological incompatibility." Krell continued, "Furthermore, we have been observing human development with great interest. They represent a unique evolutionary path, one that could benefit the entire galactic community if given the chance to flourish." Corin looked to his officers. Mech seemed ready to continue the fight, but Laura nodded in agreement with the Arcturians' assessment. "Commander," Laura said quietly, "we came here expecting an easy victory over primitives. Instead, we found a species unlike any we've encountered before. Perhaps it would be wise to reconsider our approach." 3 days later, Captain Miller stood in what remained of the Titan's primary section, now docked at Earth's orbital station. Engineers and repair crews worked around the clock to stabilize the damaged vessel, not to restore it for battle, but to preserve it as a symbol of human ingenuity and determination. A delegation had arrived from Earth to meet with representatives from both the hegemony and the Arcturian Confederation. Among them was Lieutenant Dax, whose decision to break ranks had helped prevent further bloodshed. "Captain Miller," Dax greeted her. Approaching with what she had learned was a gesture of respect among his people. "The peace talks are proceeding well. The Hegemony Council has agreed to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth." Miller nodded. "It's a start. Though I suspect some of your military leaders aren't happy about it. They will adapt," Dax replied with what might have been humor. "Perhaps not as quickly as humans, but they will adapt." They walked together through the battle-scarred corridors of the Titan, past repair teams and memorial markers for those who had fallen in the battle. "The Arcturian envoy tells me they've been watching Earth for decades," Miller commented. "Apparently, they had a bet going about whether humans would destroy themselves before reaching the stars." "And now?" Dax asked. Miller stopped at a viewport, looking out at Earth shining below and the stars beyond. "Now they're betting on how quickly we'll change the galaxy." She turned to Dax. "What do you think?" The alien considered for a moment. "I think the hegemony has much to learn from humans. Your technology is primitive, but your methods of applying it are revolutionary. Already, our engineers are studying the way you repurpose mining equipment into weapons. And we're eager to learn about your advanced technology," Miller replied. "Imagine what humans could do with proper tools instead of cobbled-together mining equipment." Dax made a sound that Miller had come to recognize as laughter. "That thought terrifies and excites my people in equal measure." As they continued their tour, Miller reflected on how close they had come to destruction. The Titan had been a desperate gamble, a symbol of humanity's refusal to surrender in the face of overwhelming odds. Now it would serve as the foundation for a new chapter in human history. 6 months later, Admiral Vex stood on the observation deck of a hegemony diplomatic vessel approaching Earth. After the Battle of Sol and the peace treaty that followed, he had been assigned to lead the official diplomatic mission to the human homeworld. On a nearby console, he reviewed the history of human warfare and adaptation. These strange bipeds had spent millennia fighting each other, developing increasingly creative ways to overcome challenges. Now that creativity was being channeled into peaceful cooperation and technological exchange. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, Vex reflected on how one small misunderstanding had nearly led to the destruction of a species that now promised to change the galaxy forever. The hegemony had always believed that technological superiority determined a civilization's worth. The humans had proven that innovation and adaptability were equally important. "Admiral," his aide reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Space Control. Our escort is approaching." Outside, a new vessel moved into view, sleek and powerful, combining hegemony design principles with human ingenuity. It was the first ship built through the new cooperation between their species. Its name was prominently displayed across the hull. Peace through understanding. A fitting name, Vex fought, for the beginning of a new era in galactic history.